So yeah, man. In 2000, we get Longhair and Doubledome and Goodwill Hunting. This short is absolutely amazing, and I want to know how this came about. But first off, was this part of the Big Pig contest?
Yes, it was. The three that were picked were Longhair and Doubledome, Robot Jones, and Bill and Mandy. So yeah, those were the ones that were picked out of this big pick type scenario. So yeah, it was part of the big pick.
I know, like, so we got the first short you did, the prehistorical days.
Mhm.
So is that like something you always thought would just be cool characters like cavemen?
I love the Pleistocene epic. I mean, I'm always amazed that I don't know what it is with people that they always have to put cavemen with dinosaurs. I mean, if you look at the age of woolly mammoths, there are some strange beasts that, I mean, whether it was, the saber-toothed cat or, I mean, these massive giant sloths, all these really strange, these rhinoceroses that had a horn like this, and there's some strange characters. There's a like a elephant thing that has this big scoop. So I always thought it was a really fascinating time, and I always thought it was better when if you kept it true to the time frame. I don't know if I had read a paper about Cro-Magnon men and Neanderthals existing at the same time, but that was the impetus. So there was a little bit of science involved here. It was happenstance science. I'm not a scientist, but I read that something about them coexisting, and I thought it'd be funny that a more intelligent human would, obviously be coexisting with what we call a Neanderthal. So that was the impetus of the idea. I love cavemen. I always thought it was funny. So obviously, prehistorical days is kind of a precursor to it. Um, we had developed a short film called Longhair and Doubledome, which was actually a real dark film that we never did. And I don't even remember the story of it for the most part, but we had these two characters and they're very different than the ones that we ended up with. For some reason, we went, I think it was the impetus was reading this scientific paper and going, oh, this could be funny. And knowing that when I pitched it, I mean, I pitched just the log line, which was, to pseudo intelligent, Cro-Magnon men get stuck in a Neanderthal world. And so that was the pitch, and they thought that could be a show. So that was how it all started. That's how it started at the Cartoon Network. So, but yeah, yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Definitely sounds fun. So when you came up with the concept, it
Mhm.
was like it was the darker version what you
The,
were thinking. That's what you
the
pitched.
initial one, no, I mean, we changed, we just kind of tossed that, but we had this other thing, out there, and but we never finished it. We always had in my studio, we always kind of we had there's like 4 or 5 films we never did. I kind of wish they were there somewhere, but we just never had the time.
So when you came up with the concept of Long Hair and Double Dome, was this going to be more of a one-off episode, or did you have a series in mind?
Oh, we had a series in mind. I think one of the biggest problems with what the network chose the pilots. So they chose both Goodwill Hunting and they chose Where There's Smoke, There's Bob. Um, and basically it's the wheel and fire, right? And so a lot of people didn't feel like, well, what else could they do? Well, the concept of long hair and double dome was the first at everything. So it's the first money, it's the first manners, it's the first, bank, it's the first, and it's always, it's basically it was to be a kind of criticism of our society was made up someone somehow, right? I mean, we could be anything. I mean, really, when you think of it, society could be any way you want it to be. That was the whole idea. Is like, okay, well, what if it was this way? Back then, and so we were kind of making a little bit of fun at how our society ended up being this. It was just kind of silly ways that society works and everything else like that.
that's a good way to look at it too, I guess. And now when I go to rewatch it, so that's just like so that's how it was when we first experienced whatever they're doing.
Right. So that's how, right, exactly. It's like they came up with it. But no, Long Hair and Double Dome, once it started, it was just to be funny.